Hello friends, in today's video we will be observing an opening called the Latvian Gambit, also called King's Gambit for black pieces. I would like you to view these videos on openings as movie trailers, where you get to see an idea of what movie is going to be about, and that allows you to make the choice if you want to invest time into watching it or not. Similarly, with one video, it's impossible to make you master any opening, not even close. But it's possible to show you main ideas for both sides and typical positions that an opening leads to, so that you can make a choice if that's something you want to continue learning on your own and play it in your games or not. So this opening starts after e4, black plays e5, knight to f3, and here black has a move f5. That is the starting position of the Latvian Gambit. Statistics in sub 2200 level games online in all time controls give black a very respectful 48% win rate against 48% win rate for white. An interesting fact is that in this segment group, black is actually scoring better in the Latvian Gambit than after what's known to be established as the main move, knight to c6, after which black only scores 44%. Of course, these are not master games and not over the board games, online games in 2200 level category or below that. I think that 99% of the people that are watching this video are going to be sub 2200 level players online. So after f5, we're going to be looking at a couple of moves that white could play. The main move is probably knight takes e5, but also there is e takes f5. We're going to be looking at d3 for sure as well. So after knight takes e5, it is very important to know for both sides that there is a threat here of queen h5. So for example, if black was going just to take this pawn, then the game ends very quickly. Queen h5, g6, knight takes g6, pawn takes queen h8, and white is basically up in material and good chances to win the game. So here black has a couple of moves that they could play. Knight to c6 is one alternative that people are sometimes trying, but the most popular move is queen f6. And this move might look very weird. We're not developing our minor pieces, as well as taking away the f6 square from our knight. However, with this move, black is pairing the threat of queen h5. So now the queen is guarding this pawn on g6. We're attacking the knight on e5, which prevents white of going for ideas of bishop c4, a pretty common idea in the Latvian Gambit in some lines, as right now the knight itself, of course, is hanging. And after the knight moves, we can comfortably win the pawn that we are down right now. Also, in the middle game, if we castle short, sometimes the f-file is likely to be open. We're able to create some threats along the f-file with the rook and queen connected. So here the main move for white is d4, although other moves exist as well, and it is very important for black to not take the pawn right away, as it could simply lead to a disaster of bishop to c4, and there is really no good way to be defending the f7 square right now. Knight h6 is not possible because they can remove it whenever they want, and so for black it's important to know that first we need to kick out the knight before we're winning that pawn. So for example, knight to c4, now black is taking the pawn, and the material is equal. Of course, white is leading the development, so the most popular and natural move at the same time is knight to c3 attacking the pawn, and here black has a little tricky move, queen g6, defending the pawn on e4, and also at the same time aiming at the pawn on g2 and freeing the square on f6 for our knight. And if white is seeing this position for the first time, sometimes they have to figure out how they're going to develop the king side, because they can't touch the bishop, as it seems the pawn on g2 is hanging. So one of the moves that they could play, and is very good, is knight e3. So now they're ready to just develop the light square bishop. But if you're watching this video to know what you want to play against the Latvian Gambit with white, my recommended move is f3. It's in the spirit of the position. White wants to open up the position, solve the problem of the hanging pawn, and then develop the initiative with tempi and get a really simple position to play. So here in this position, black has pretty much nothing better than taking it, and it seems like white is sacrificing a pawn on c2, but in fact we cannot take this because after bishop d3 black is losing the queen. You can pause the video and see that the queen has nowhere to go from the square c2, and so it turns out this pawn is poisoned, so black has nothing better than develop. And now not only the pawn on g2 is no longer hanging, but also there is bishop d3 coming with a tempo, white castles, and this overwhelming activity of the white's pieces promise big advantage to white. Now, if you're considering of trying this in some blitz games with black, I will give you some moves that at least will give you not a losing position right away. So black looks for a relief with the queen exchange. And so queen g4 is one of the moves that black can try. For example, here and here, at least black can fight for a draw. It doesn't look completely lost right away. So usually white plays queen to e3 check. Black then pins the white's queen to the king. And here already white has nothing better than exchange the queens, for example, castles. Of course, there are many moves that both white and black could play. We're just looking at one of the possible lines, or perhaps the most popular line. Then takes, and here, for example, bishop e7, rook a1, and castles seem to be a natural sequence of moves where white has big advantage, but the question is it decisive or not? I believe that black can still be fighting for a draw. The position is not equal, not even close, but maybe there is no clear, concrete way of how to win this with white currently, and there is still some work to be done. So I believe this is the main line, at least this knight takes e5 to what I refer as the main line. With the engine, it's possible to find some better alternatives. As I pointed out, there are many ways to play this with white especially, and unfortunately for black, most of the lines are good. But I believe that this is where you start learning the Latvian Gambit with this sequence of moves first. Now let's take a look at an alternative for white. Instead of taking on e5, there's also a move e takes f5, and here black is very happy to finally use this idea that is very common in many openings, where sacrificing a pawn temporarily and then got to restrict opponent's knight by pushing one of our pawns, an idea we see in many openings. And here it is such a bad opening for black objectively. As we said, statistics say it might be good practically in certain segment group, but objectively it's so bad that even after knight g1, white is much better. Can you believe? But no one is going to play that against you. And here we're going to look at a couple of moves. First one is knight to d4. So here I like to play queen f6 with black. And if they play knight b5 trying to get this fork, I like to play with black queen to e5. So keeping it annoying from black's perspective with very active queen, we're gonna try to get this pawn back with all sort of ideas like d5 and bishop takes f5. And if they play c3, then we're playing knight to c6 and hoping to exchange this knight as soon as possible. If, for example, they take, black is very happy because now they can play bishop takes f5, castles long, and it's at least clear how black is going to be making moves on the next couple of moves, and the development is easy for the black pieces in this position. So let's take a look at knight e5, which seems to be a more popular and aggressive option there after e4. And unfortunately, some people still mistaken the lines and play queen f6 here, which is a terrible blunder, because there is this pawn already on f5. After queen h5, we don't have enough protection for g6. So for example, g6 and takes. By the way, notice how queen is guarding the rook on h8, so they can't take it. But then, for example, takes, takes, and here white is winning or having a winning advantage. So already, because the pawn is on f5, black needs to play knight f6 here. It stops both queen h5 ideas, and also there's no bishop c4 as we're ready to meet this with d5. And white has a very nasty idea here, bishop to e2, followed by queen bishop to h5, and distorting the right to castle, distorting the black's king, and there is no way for black to be defending this idea. It's like, if we take, queen recaptures, and there is still this annoying check. And I will show you one idea for black that is a must-known, which will at least not make you lose on the spot or anything like that. And in fact, here, the lines are not super dangerous for black, especially if white does not know the computer lines. So we play bishop e7, so that after check, we could go king f8, and it looks completely lost, right? They could go knight f7, there is this fork on our queen and rook, but suddenly there is queen e8. And because there is the spin and the piece behind is under attack, actually it turns out that black is okay. For example, they take the rook, queen takes h5, queen takes, knight takes, and this knight seems to be trapped. Like if black would just collect it, then we get two pieces for a rook, and black is actually much better on playing for a win. So white hurries up with g4 so that they could establish a defense for their knight on f7 square, and all come with tempi. So for example, knight to f6, white plays g5, knight to d5, and g6. And here already white might be threatening of taking, and this would be a disaster. So black plays h6, and white hurries up to move the knight away, but black is in time to play d6, and in fact this position black is playing for a win. The knight of whites is not escaping. So these type of chaotic positions that are dynamical and unusual is what the Latvian Gambit players, I believe, are hoping for in a fast time controls. Like, it's rare to see anything like that. At least I don't see a lot of openings that lead to something like this. So this would be the line if they're playing e takes f5 and e4 or some of the lines. And now let's take a look at a couple of moves which are not that scary for black. And one of them being is d3. I believe this is a popular move among amateurs who are not intending to take risks in gambits that they have never seen before. And with black, we're going to play knight c6 and tease white to take again. For example, if they take, we take over the middle. We're ready to win the pawn back on f5, and here I believe black is better. You could say slightly better, marginally better, but I like black's chances, at least in the practical game. So white usually plays knight to c3, and we're teasing them to take on f5 again. For example, they take, we play d5, and this center and regaining the pawn on f5 is what black wants from this opening. And one more crazy line, just because we can do it: knight h4, and attempt to hold on to the pawn. And just gonna show you something beautiful, not because it's the main line or anything. Black can play knight d4 since it's a free square to go to our knight, is not threatened there. They have weakened that square. Then g4, of course we're attacking f5, so they defend that. And here there is knight takes g4, queen takes g4, queen takes h4, takes on knight f3, and king e2 and knight takes h4. And it's not like this position is winning for black or anything like that. Like, there's still knight d5 and then bishop d6, but black is okay here, which is what we want out of an opening like this. And this is one of those interesting lines that could arise from this crazy Latvian Gambit. So usually white is just trying to bombard the center, and here it's important to not allow e4, knight e5, because then they will develop this initiative with the pins. So if already they play d4, usually we take, knight takes, takes, bishop to f5, and now black should be okay, and is okay even objectively here. I think if white doesn't do anything crazy and we get to finish the development, the position is very comfortable. And the last one that I would like to show you is the line knight c3. So then what black does is takes, and very surprisingly, a move which is a mistake, knight takes e4, is 10 times more popular in the same segment group than what's supposed to give an advantage, and the move knight e5. So here, once again, black can take over the middle with d5. For example, knight c3. Here, knight d4, knight f6, and just one of the most comfortable positions you have ever had out of the opening with black. So, of course, what white should take here is the pawn on e5 and threatening these nasty queen h5, bishop f5 ideas. So black must play knight f6, and we're gonna have here an interesting battle. There is d5, a bishop c4, d5, and then they could deflect this knight to get this queen h5 check. So takes, queen h5 check, g6, takes on g6, takes on g6, and now if they take on h8, it is considered that it's dynamic equality, where black is winning more with this kingside attack. So you can count the material because there were quite a few pieces that were taken. But g3, knight h3, for example, king g2 and bishop g4 where a few games were going. So instead of taking here on h8, the main move for white is to take on g6, and then it's not that good. Bishop d5, and black has a piece for many pawns, and at the same time, the cherry on the top for white is that black's king is very, very bad. So these are the types of crazy positions that Latvian Gambit is played for. Unfortunately, white is more happy most of the time, but the best part about it, if there is a best part about Latvian Gambit for black, that mostly people on move 3 are out of book, or on move 2. So after f5, if they're white, they don't know these computer lines or the lines that are good for white, and then they're taking these risks, and you can try them out in blitz games against players in the segment group sub like 2000 level, and if things are not working out for you, stop playing it, because it's not a good opening, of course, but it could be your surprise weapon in some bullet or blitz games. And if you're white, I think that you must know how to react against it properly to get a maximum advantage, and I would be advocating for that line of knight takes e5 from white's point of view. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on the Latvian Gambit, and I wish you to stay safe, my friends. If you liked what you see, put a like on this video and subscribe to my chess channel. You can also consider hiring me as your personal chess coach online. That's my full-time job for many years. My contacts are on the right, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you, my friends.